morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're really excited to have this webinar today and bring out some more useful information, hopefully, for your business. And I wanted to just let everybody know, if you haven't been on some of the earlier webinars, this is actually the fourth webinar in a six-part series. I didn't update my slide there, but today we're going to be talking about the Disaster Recovery Maturity Framework. So you can see the previous webinars and dates that we've conducted them. They are all recorded, as is this one today, and are posted on our website and YouTube page. So you can go back if you've missed any of the earlier ones. There's some great information. Each of these webinars has a great white paper that we've developed that has more detailed information on what we're covering on the webinars for you and your team to look at and work through. So up and coming, we've got a couple more, and this campaign will be completed, and lots of great information has been put together for you guys to look at your business continuity and disaster recovery practices. Really quick, I'll do a quick introduction of myself and Apex. If you're not familiar with us yet, we'll talk about the topic for today, which is Disaster Recovery Maturity Framework, and then we'll have some questions and answers at the end. So if you have any questions on the topic, please enter them into the question box on the little pop-out application with GoToMeeting, and we'll get to those at the end. Okay, so my name is George Pasadakis. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing at Apex Technology Management. You can see the whole team there, and we're standing in front of the beautiful Sundial Bridge here in Redding, California, over the Sacramento River. Quick facts for us: we've been in business since 1991. We're very happy. This is our 25th year anniversary. We are going to be moving into a new building soon and plan on having a really awesome client appreciation open house, and we're going to invite all of our clients that can make it to see the new building, meet everybody in the company, and just kick off our 25th year here. We've got about 30 employees, 275 years of combined experience. You can see lots of the certifications that we've got down below there from all the major vendors, Microsoft, Cisco, etc. Our team is really focused on staying cutting edge, staying on top of the latest technology, and working with the leading vendors in the space. So they're constantly getting educated on the newest technologies and products that are coming out from these vendors, so we can bring that skill to all of our clients and help them leverage technology to increase the effectiveness of their business. We provide both remote and on-site IT support with 24/7 response, and we have clients throughout California and other regions, primarily in Northern California and Central California. Certifications, and we're really happy this year. As of last week, the MSP Mentor organization every year releases their top 501 list of IT providers worldwide. So they look at all the top providers in our space and ranked Apex number 260. So we're definitely climbing up the list, and they've looked at a number of factors, the solutions that are offered by an IT provider, how well their business is organized and run, and how well they take care of their customers. So we're very happy to have been listed as number 260. As I mentioned, we do have a fully staffed network operations center and help desk in Redding. These are the team of people that are here every day to answer your questions or your staff's questions when they have any issues with their computers or software applications. These guys stay in the office. We have another team that goes out into the field to handle the on-site requirements. So unlike some other businesses where you may wait on hold for quite a while or not get anybody if they're out on a project, we have a dedicated team here that takes your calls directly, and we average a 19-second response rate on picking up the phone and taking the call. So we're very happy about that, and plan to continue to expand in that area. Okay, right to the topic here. So one of the important things, obviously, about running a small and medium business, an SMB, is you've got to find ways to keep your operation running. And downtime of your IT systems can be very costly. More and more every year, small and medium businesses relying on their technology to do more things. How are you going to look up a customer when they call in? How are you going to get an order or a quote out? How are you going to look up information on dispatching a service technician to somebody's business or home if you don't have access to your systems? How are you going to treat your patients? So downtime can be very expensive. You can see the statistics here. It's estimated that each year in North America, small and medium businesses lose $226.5 billion due to IT downtime. For an SMB, perhaps your size with less than 1,000 employees, it's estimated that downtime can be a minimum of $12,500 per day. And that's from multiple factors. Like I mentioned, you won't be able to have access to your systems. You won't be able to generate revenue while your systems are unavailable. You may fall out of compliance with some contractual commitments, regulatory requirements that would cause damage to your company because your IT systems aren't available. You could also have, in the extreme cases, customer defections. If you are working with a very unreliable IT environment with frequent downtime, your customers are going to pick up on that. And eventually they're going to get frustrated and move on and do business with somebody else that they believe will have a more reliable infrastructure for you. So these are important factors to consider as you're thinking about your disaster recovery and business continuity plans. Gartner Group has a statistic. A small and medium business that had a data loss event has a 70% likelihood of going out of business within a year. It's very difficult if you lose some of your critical business data to recreate all of that, get back on your feet, continue to serve your existing customers, and get going again. So it's very important that you try to avoid the downtime, you have good backups, you have good disaster recovery plans in place. Also, from their research, 57% of small businesses don't have a disaster recovery plan in place, and only 23% have good backups on a daily basis of their critical information. So if you're in that group, good job. If you're not, there's some things you should do and look at, we'll talk about, and some of the other webinars that we've done have gone into that in more detail, but this is definitely something you need to be thinking about as you move forward in your business planning. Okay, so what we're going to talk about here is the disaster recovery maturity framework, and that's just some fancy words for how do you fit in with where your organization is at into a framework of being prepared. So we've got this graphic here to help make that easy. You can see we've got, you can see my laser pointer there, the 5 levels across the bottom. And as you move through the levels from level 1 through level 5, your recovery readiness is increasing. And the likelihood of your recovery in the event of a disaster or a data loss event goes up as well. So we're going to dive into each of these 5 levels on the next few slides, but you can see this is something that there's some specific information and some assessments you can do to figure out where you're at. Typically, when we take on a new client here at Apex to manage their IT operations, they're coming in at a level 1 or maybe a level 2. They're doing a few things, and we try to move them into level 3, level 4, and some will even get into the level 5 range. So very important to really first off understand where you're at and where do you need to be. Okay, level 1 we call ad hoc. If this is typical of a small business, this is not a good situation to be in. Pretty much almost nothing's been done to ensure that you're ready to recover from a disaster or a data loss event. You may have occasional backups. Somebody's making a copy once in a while of critical files once you think you've added enough to substantiate that next backup, but there's nothing regular going on. There's no recovery plan in place. Any event that causes downtime, it's going to have your team or your IT provider really scrambling to figure out how do we get back up and running, what data do we have to recover from, how do we need to recover that, and the net effect is you're going to have a much longer period of downtime and you're at high risk for not even recovering your most critical data. So if you're at this level, you definitely want to be thinking about this as a priority going forward. Redirect some of your IT budget into getting a good disaster recovery plan in place. A lot of times when we find these companies that come to us, there really is no senior management involved in understanding what the risk is that the organization is facing due to this level. So very important that you start to make some plans to move up the maturity model curve. Next level is 2, and in this mode you're more reactive. So you started to put some elements of protection in place. You may have local backups going to an external hard drive, a tape. You may be replicating some data over to a server so you can fail over in the event of downtime. But what we typically find in this level is you're using a hodgepodge or a basket of products. It's a very disparate system. There's no integration, there's no central management of all of this that's going on, and lots of extra charges. You may be paying 3 or 4 vendors for these different pieces of software, and every year you need to renew, update to the latest version, and you actually have more cost than if you were at some of the higher levels. You may have some rough documentation on how to recover and documents on how your backups take place, which will help in an outage, but you're still going to be exposed to much longer downtime while you're scrambling to figure out how to bring all of these different pieces together and bring your environment back up. So, some simple things you can do at this level is just more documentation. So if you do have an event, a data loss event, at least there's information on where you go to find things, how you recover, and some of the things that happen here that we've seen is you'll have backups. Let's say you have a tape backup system and you're using a backup software application and you're getting your ongoing backups. Now a server crashes and you need to completely rebuild it onto new hardware. Sometimes you'll find an organization scrambling to actually find the backup software disk to reload onto the new server to recover data from a tape or a hard drive backup. And it could be several years prior when that was purchased and nobody knows where it is. So now you're scrambling or you need to buy a new copy. You hope it's compatible with the version you were running. So reactive, you get some more protection, some level of increased protection, but it's still a pretty risky situation when you're recovering. Level 3, this is now where we like to start to get our companies into. You're in a much better place. You've thought about this. You are working on a documented recovery plan, or you have that in place. You know exactly how you're going to recover, where the software to recover is, or your particular backup solution, how that happens. We've talked about on previous webinars a hybrid model that has local backups onto an appliance and hybrid, cloud backups with your data off-site, and the ability to actually spin up your servers in the cloud if you had a disaster at your local site, or if just a particular server failed, spinning up on the local backup appliance. So you've got all that documented, and you've thought about a couple of very important things that we've talked about on previous webinars, RPO and RTO, recovery point objectives and recovery time objectives. The recovery point objectives are tell you basically how many backups you're taking and how often you're taking them. So is it okay in your particular business to have just nightly backups, or do you need multiple backups during the day? If you were to fail and you have nightly backups, you're going to lose data up until the previous night where the backup took place. That may be acceptable for many businesses, and we have lots of clients that do that. Other businesses, they need to take multiple backups during the day or every hour, so at most they're going to lose an hour. So that's your recovery point objective. Your recovery time objective is how long can you wait once you do have an event while you're down and recovering your systems. Some businesses, a couple hours would be a really large impact to their business and revenue. Other businesses, 2, 3, 4 hours overnight, they can get by. They have manual procedures that can be done, but the idea is you just need to think about that, and depending on where you come out with your recovery time objective, you want to make sure the software system that you're using to back up, or the hybrid model, or the particular vendor can meet the time frame that you need to come online. Some systems, if you have a physical server failure, you need to go order a new server with the right specifications, wait till that gets shipped to you, set it up, reload your server operating system and then recover all of your, reload all your applications and recover your files. That can take several days to make that happen. So some backup systems, like I mentioned, the hybrid model that we use frequently allows you to spin that server up on the backup appliance, and you're now up and running while you're replacing that server. Once you have it back in, everything's running, you move your data back over from the backup appliance to the new server, and now you're running and you have that redundancy restored and in place for the next event. So being prepared is a really good thing. Takes a little bit of work to get there, but it's definitely worthwhile. You know what to expect, and you have to have thought this through ahead of time. One of the examples that we have in here was somebody at a level 3. They were doing a great job backing up their servers. They were using image backups off to the cloud. However, they weren't updating some of the information on how they did some things on a server. And when Superstorm Sandy hit on the East Coast, they were able to virtualize their server in the cloud, but because they didn't do some of those updates, one of the servers was incompatible with the others. They weren't communicating, and they had to scramble and make some updates before the business could be up and running. So they were able to recover. However, it took a little bit of extra time after the downtime to bring them up. When we get into level 4, now we're talking about you've moved in through the reactive, you've done some preparations, and now you're in the proactive phase. You have a really solid recovery plan, and then you've done some work to validate that and done some testing to make sure it's actually going to work. This is really important for businesses that have mission critical data on their environment. You need to have thought through the recovery. You need to do a periodic test to make sure you can bring your data back. For some businesses, that's testing the recovery of several files off the backup. Gives you a good idea that you can recover all of the files. Others, that's more critical, we need to actually bring up the server on the backup appliance or in the cloud, make an assessment, is everything there and running as expected, and that will give you a good idea of how prepared you are. And very importantly, that Superstorm Sandy example would have caught that server incompatibility had they done a test and restored all of those critical servers and tried to work everything that's integrated through the process and assess, are we up and running successfully. So it's also very important when you're at this level that any change that you're doing is updated on your documentation. We call it, these are living documents. Anytime you make a change to your environment, you add a new service or application on your network, you want to make sure that document's updated, reflects the latest information, and then redo your testing. That way you're in much better shape when something happens, and you've got the confidence that you're going to be able to come back in the event of a disaster much more quickly. And many businesses, this is about as far as they get. It can tend to get a little bit more expensive to go beyond this, but for some businesses, they need to do that. And that's where we have level 5, which we call resilient. And this is, you definitely have that disaster recovery plan that we mentioned in level 4, and you've tested it, but it's now integrated with a business continuity plan. The next couple of webinars, we're going to talk more about the difference between a business continuity plan and a disaster recovery plan. But high level, the business continuity plan lays out exactly how you're going to bring your business back up and running in the event of a disaster. Let's say there's a hurricane or a flood or a fire burns your building down, and these things have all happened. How are you going to bring your business back up? Not just your servers and network environment, but your business. How are you going to ensure the safety of your employees? Where are you going to meet if your building was destroyed? How are you going to communicate? You're bringing up your IT systems is one critical component of it, but there are many other things you need to think about for a full business continuity plan, and that's what you need to be level 5 resilient organization with this. How are your staff going to communicate you? What if the cell towers are down in your area and the phone systems are down? How do people communicate? who do they communicate with? These are all things we've talked about on some of the earlier webinars. We'll have some more details in the white papers for the next 2 webinars, but this is the highest level of readiness that you can have, and for many businesses, they definitely need to get to this level. And they're the ones that are going to make it through such a significant disaster. So level 5 is a really good level to get at if you can do it. We also typically see at this level much more management and executive level support. So they are looking at this, they're overseeing the test, or at least monitoring the test results to make sure the rest of the organization is ready to go in the event of a disaster. This is something that you'll probably need to increase your allocation in your IT budget and your disaster recovery budget to make sure you have a business continuity plan that's in place and tested, but it's definitely somewhat important that you have the executive team bought into this as you're moving through and trying to make this happen. Okay, so those are the 5 levels that we talked about, and what you need to figure out for your organization is, where are you at? Are you level 1, level 2 range? Are you already at level 3 and you want to get to the level 4 level? What are you going to need to do to get to where you need to be? You may be at level 1 right now, and that's why you're on this webinar, to figure out how you can assess that, and you want to get to level 3 in the next year. So the first step is identifying where your organization is at. If you download the white paper from this webinar, there'll be a little bit more detail in that. If you have an internal IT staff, you can share this information, and they should be able to start to move through and let you know where they think your organization is on the maturity model. And if you need some assistance, one of the things that we do at Apex frequently when we have a new client coming on board, or a client that's not sure where they're at, is what we call technical assessment. So it's a really good way to figure out, where are you at now, where do you need to be, and how do you get there? So assessing your disaster recovery level is definitely part of that assessment, but it also gives you much more detail. You can see this is a screenshot of a sample report card that we provide after we do the assessment. And there are 4 areas across 8 layers of your IT environment that we assess. Your inventory, what do you have, what state is it in, the security of everything, the reliability, how reliable is your environment going to be going forward? Should you expect to have smooth operations with that equipment and technology, or are you possibly going to have some speed bumps on the road ahead? And then the sustainability. And then we take a look at these 8 layers and give you red, yellow, green. Nice report card. We also give you our top 10 recommendations based on what we found. Those are very important. We found our clients can use those in their budgeting on a 1 to 3 year IT plan moving forward on what to address. Great information to review with your executive team or your board of directors as you're moving through this. So that would be one good next step to get going. And we've got more information on our website under the technical assessment section. And if you have any questions with that, you can definitely reach out to us. Okay, so that was the high-level material for today. As I mentioned, this is number 4 on a series of 6 webinars. We'll talk a lot more about that business continuity topic that I mentioned briefly today, and what that is and why you would need that beyond just a disaster recovery plan. And then the final webinar will be best practices on disaster recovery planning and testing. So some very specific steps on how you go about the planning, and some of the strategies for conducting those tests. So these 2 can push you into that level 4 and level 5 realm very effectively. So we'll be sharing a lot more information on that. Okay, so that was the information I had today for you. Thanks for joining.